Cyborg Assassin 1, Chapter 11, Hidden City. The sun was setting in the blood-red sky when Frankie and Dave reached the north coast. Outside the cave's mouth, Dave paced, trying to contact someone on his holophone. Olio slept in his basket despite the pounding waves. "She ain't answering, lad." "Why not?" "I think it's something to do with the killings up the coast during the eclipse. That wasn't my fault." If Frankie didn't have to become a murderer, he'd be pleased to return with Olio and Dave. "Who's there?" Dave activated a flashlight and pulled out a revolver from his inner pocket. An alien creature tiptoed from the darkness. His skin was the blackest Frankie had ever seen, not dark brown, but black like charcoal. His almond-shaped eyes stretched up and across, so large they easily spanned a third of his face. Pure black, those eyes had no whites in them. It was as tall as Dave, and its voice vibrated in Frankie's earpiece. "Don't shoot me." "Only if you take my lad to Hidden City. I have a friend called Zarita, one of the 5 sisters. Frankie touched his lips. Were all the people in Hidden City the same as this strange creature? "Okay, I'll take him back with me." "Good." Dave pouted at Frankie and opened his arms for an embrace. Frankie blew out his cheeks, then hugged him. "You've been like a brother to me. Thank you." "And you like a son." Frankie peeped at the sleeping Olio. "Best not wake him. I've got to get back over those mountains." "He'll miss me." "Sure will." Dave stared at the alien. "Your people don't take any pets, do they?" He rolled his shoulders. "No animals, only humans." "See?" Dave pulled away. "Will I ever see you again?" "Let's hope not, for your own sake. We'll be enemies now. Here, I pack you some stuff. Keep the hoverboard too. I'll tell him you escaped." Frankie accepted the hoverboard and sack. Dave turned to the alien and Frankie. "Tell Zarita that little Dave brought him. She'll know who I am, though she won't let on." He flicked a hand. "Now be off with you." He turned around and lifted up to the sky. A fat tear trickled down the side of Frankie's nose as he hauled his hoverboard over his back and clutched the sack in the other hand. Zing's ribcage contracted as he led the Mayleedian teenager back into the cavern and tunnel. Just slightly shorter than him, Zing figured he must be older because Zing was massive for a 14-year-old. His jaw tensed at this inconvenience. It had taken him long enough to get permission to leave. They'd likely not let him and this native in since they'd put the entire city into lockdown. The young man said something in a foreign language and it echoed in Vortanese through a hidden speaker. "Who are you?" When they settled in the boat, Zing picked up the oars and dipped them into the cave's river. "My name's Zing." His jaw tightened. "Why do you look so different?" "What?" "Your massive black eyes." "I'm a Beluvian." Dave mentioned something about Beluvians. "Are there white ones too?" "Yep." "Where are we going?" "Hidden City." "What's with all the questions?" He gritted his teeth and dug the oars into the water, pulling them through the tunnel. The native held up his snow-white palms. "Easy now. You don't need to be rude. I've had a tough day." "A hard day? Is your sister locked up? Did you see your mum and stepdad get killed?" "What? No, but my mum, well, I did. I should fly south to rescue my sister from a concentration camp, but I've just come from there." Zing held his breath. "You escaped?" "Kind of." He wiggled on the seat and his gaze followed the 2 lines of glow balls set into the sides of the tunnel. "What do you mean, kind of?" He aimed for the smooth stone shore. "They wanted me to work there." He almost dropped the oars. "What? You're a communist?" "I was, but they captured me from Exorius. I hate them killing people. I've run away." "Who was that guy?" "Is he a spy? What does he have to do with our leaders?" "He sees me from the Sky City, Exorius." "Abducted you?" He nodded. "My parents died too. I was homeless and poor. He wanted to help me and brought me to a camp over the mountains. but the commissar said I had to learn to kill. So what were you doing in the concentration camp, watching the prisoners get shot? The native's neck disappeared as his shoulders hitched forward. Zing's stomach hardened. He tied the boat against a metal bar secured in the slippery stone. You've never seen a Beluvian before? Never. So they didn't shoot my sister too? Does she look like you? Same eyes, but white skin. I swear, I've seen no one with eyes like yours. There might be hope. You want to go there now? Soon. They clambered out of the boat and the stranger followed Zing up the cavern's natural steps with bubbling mud pools. They reached the chamber with the abyss. What? I can't walk along that path. I'll fall. You must get asylum. It's the only way. I can't. The boy hung back. I'm scared. Okay. Zing put his hands on his hips. If you don't cross this, you can be homeless again. No, wait. I'll join you. Zing crossed the narrow shelf to get to the other side. He crossed his arms over his chest, watching the terrified teenager gasp his way across to join him. As the Mayleedian reached the last part of the ledge, his foot slipped. He fell and grabbed the edge with 2 white hands. Zing dropped to his knees and crawled to help. He gripped the native's wrists. The white guy screwed up his face and puffed in and out through tight lips. Help me! Zing pulled. His hands slipped. Zing's breath bottled as he captured a skinny elbow. He kicked out, searching for a crevice in the rock floor. He found one jutting out and towed it. Using all his strength, he pulled the teenager out from the hole, leaving him panting and sobbing on the ground. You saved my life. Zing raked fingers through slick black hair. And I don't have time for this. It's my sister's life. I must save, not some strangers. He stood, poised. Let's go. Thanks. If you want to thank me, you'll get up and follow me now. My sister could be the next in line for execution. I need to fly all the way to that shithole. When they arrived at the security doors, instead of the steel sliding open, someone spoke through the speaker. Who is it? Zing. What are you doing out there? The 5 sisters gave me permission to go on a journey. Hold for a few minutes. Visions of Isa getting gunned down swelled in the forefront of his mind. You say you saw the guards shooting the prisoners? The white guy nodded and looked at his shoes. How? With a machine gun. How does your friend know about this place? Not sure, but he knows a sister called Zarita and keeps it secret from the other communists. It sounded feasible. Perhaps he wasn't a spy, but what if he was? The voice came static again. The sisters asked why you've returned so quickly. I have an escapee. I found him on the shore. Better leave out some of the details to make the process faster. Escapee from where? Zing's mouth went dry. If he said he'd arrived from the concentration camp on his hoverboard, they'd think he was an enemy. He peered at the stranger and pressed a finger against his lips. He can't say much. He's confused and hungry. What's he wearing? Plain clothes. Communist clothes? He closed his eyes in an attempt to stay calm. I don't know. They look normal to me. I'll access the cameras. An infrared light flashed on and the voice returned. He's a communist. You led a communist to our hideout. No, wait. We must imprison him. He says he's... The door slid open, revealing a burly guard who grabbed the citizen and pulled him into the chamber. Zing reached out. Wait, you've made... The door slammed shut with a clang. The sisters say you must continue your mission and rescue your sister. We'll interrogate this young man. He isn't a spy. No reply. You're our enemy. The Mayleedian guard narrowed his yellow eyes. What are you doing here? Frankie gulped. Let me speak to Zarita. My friend knows her. The guard frowned and nodded. He pushed him towards a glass lift. Frankie's body heat rose as he looked through the wall. The lift descended, a wide hole surrounded by many floors containing forests and farms, all bathed in infrared. What is this place? Don't ask questions. While you're wearing that communist uniform, you're no friend of mine. When the end reached When the lift reached -13, they exited and waited in a hallway outside. The guard scanned his eyes and fingerprints into a device on the wall and told someone what Frankie had told him. They waited outside the closed lift until a bold woman stepped out. Like the boy who had shown him the way, this woman had enormous and completely black eyes. Only her skin colouring differed. It was chalk white like his own, instead of coal black. She wore layers of ankle-length robes made of grey silk, felt and wood. "Who is your friend who brought you to the coast outside of our cave system?" "I want one name only." "Are you Zarita?" he asked. "Answer my question." He told me Zarita knows him as Little Dave. Her thin pink lips separated. "I'm Zarita. Follow me." Before they reached the lift, she turned back to the guard. "Did you check him for a weapon?" "Yes." "Tell not a soul about this." They entered the lift, which took them down through the rock. "Where are we going?" "To my home. Let's not talk about this here." He followed her along a tunnel indented with orange lights. After scanning her iris and hand, she invited him inside her cave. He took off his shoes and looked around, polished to a shine. The floor was warm underfoot. She gestured to a leather armchair. "Sit. Tea?" "Please." He walked over a sheepskin rug and sat. "Hungry?" "I could eat, but Dave fed me before we journeyed here from the south." "I'll prepare tea. Relax there." He waited and scanned the space as she disappeared through a tunnel. There wasn't much to see, except for shelves covering a wall and containing cuboid-shaped objects slotted side by side. He wrinkled his nose and stood, then pulled out an object and opened it. Many thin and flexible layers of white material fluttered as they spread out. The woman's laugh made him jump back 2 steps. "You found my books." He leafed through one and recognized letters and words. "Books?" She bowed. "They're hundreds of years old and should be preserved somewhere special, really. But neither the communists nor the capitalists want them anymore. They'd be better suited to old Beelu where they're still used, though I doubt anyone would understand the language." "What are books?" "They hold stories inside." He blinked. "Real stories?" "Some are make-believe and some are true. Can you read?" He slipped the book back between its neighbours and dropped his arms to his sides. "No, I never went to school." She frowned. "The communists of Artheus don't believe in education. Their children. I ain't from Vorta. Dave took me from Osbox." "That's far. What region?" "Ever heard of Siena?" "Yes, I've heard of the marvellous sky cities there. Isn't the capital Exorius?" "That's where I'm from." The warmth left his body. "Well, the slums under the Sky City, that is." She nodded towards a shiny brown pot of tea on a small table between the armchairs. Beside it, 2 black bowls sat. "Come, have something to drink, and then you can tell me all about it. Afterwards, I'll find you some food and give you a place to stay." He lowered his gaze and faltered towards the armchair. "Thank you." Chapter 12. Second Attempt. With light-intensifying goggles, Singh zoomed over the last mountain peaks above the dark plain. To make sure he hadn't dropped the pack of food on his back, he reached around and felt lumps in his backpack. Dried apples, bread, and mountain bean cakes. It took hours to fly over the plains, but he finally spotted the glare of red floodlights within the encampment below. He touched down far away from the prisoner camp and then made it on foot to the fence section behind the place where Isa had gone into. He squatted beside bushes on the outside of the wire fortification. Shadows covered building number 23 and the barbed wire from where he watched. He was forced to pull off his goggles under the red glare of security floodlights. He cut a hole in the wire with pliers, then slid through head first. He hid behind his sister's block where rats foraged around. Although darkness protected the back of the building, the front absorbed a floodlight's red rays. After bringing a shaky hand to his forehead, he ran over cold red bricks. Now was his only chance. If he didn't rescue her tonight, the guards might notice that hole he'd cut. A wave of cold came over him as he tiptoed into the glaring light and pulled open a padlock from the metal loops. The door swung inwards. He shut it behind him, then slipped on his goggles so he could see in the dark. 20 bunk beds sat in 3 rows. He crept along each row and stopped beside any beds where a white head of hair rested. When Zing couldn't see the girl or woman's face, he mentally noted which bed it was and sneaked to the next. All albino faces had small eyelids which covered miniature Mayleedian eyes. One tossed and turned at the end of the room. He scampered towards it and recognized Isa right away. He wet his lips and gripped her hand. The white film on the surface of her eyeballs opened like curtains. Her brow furrowed and she whispered, "What are you doing here?" "I've come to save you." He tugged her elbow. "Let's go." She sat up, scanned the room, and then moved to the ladder where he beckoned with an arm for her to follow. He cringed when her bed frame screeched and she climbed down. Isa looked as bony as a skeleton in rags, even just after a few days. "What the hell?" someone said on the bunk below. "What are you doing?" "Shh," Isa said. "My brother's rescuing me." "Then you're taking me too." "No, we're not," Zing said. "We don't have the transportation for you." "Then I'll scream my head off." "Don't," Finley said. The woman had already gotten out of bed. She stood beside him. Although he couldn't see her purple skin, his light-intensifying lenses made out her fennec features, small, pointed eyes, a typically heart-shaped face, and a long, flat nose. "Take me with you." They crept along the central gangway, then out the front and into the blazing light. As they stalked along the front to reach the shade, an alarm broke out. Bang! Bang! Isa fell. Zing gasped to control his breath. "I've twisted my ankle," Isa said. "Hurry up!" The foreign woman bent forward and hitched one of Isa's arms over her shoulder, then cut a glance at Zing, who had frozen to the spot. Bang! The bullet whooshed past his ear and into the brick wall. "Leave me," Isa said. "Go without me." His legs tensed as he helped the stranger carry Isa to the hole, accompanied by running guards within the enclosure. He crawled through. The fennec woman laid Isa down. After pulling Isa's arms, he carried her to the hover. Furious shouts boomed from the inside of the fence. In an instant, the woman was in the air and zigzagging to dodge bullets. Bang, bang! In a heartbeat, Zing lifted up and followed. Smash! His stomach did a flip as a bullet hit his hover. He and Isa dropped out of the sky. Pain radiated through his body and he saw Isa crawling to him. Her eyes didn't twinkle anymore, but looked as dry and malnourished as her body. "They're coming to get us!" "The hover's broken. I think I've broken my legs." The buzz of the second hover came as the purple fennec touched down. "You still have time to escape. It'll take a couple of minutes for the guards to show up." "No," Zing eyed the tanks in the distance. "They've got tanks." "I can get your sister out of here." His belly fluttered. "Yes, take her. Leave me here." "Stay right where you are," a voice boomed on a speaker. "I can't leave you," Isa said. "Go. I promised Mum I'd take care of you. This is our chance." "It won't take the weight of 3, he winced. "My legs are broken." "They'll kill you instead," Isa cried. "Come on," the woman said. "Let's go." "Home is north of here. Fly north," instructed the fennec. He instructed the fennec. "Then follow the coast. Isa will tell you where the cave is." "I can't leave you." His heartbeat raced. "Please, Isa. You'll never get another chance." The fennec grabbed her arm. They ascended high into the sky and darted over the plain. A tank's rumbling engine stopped as it parked beside him. 2 guards jumped out and put him in a headlock. An intruder from the beach. We'll torture the information out of him. Both men hauled him into the tank. He's injured. One said, good, it'll make the torture a lot easier. Frankie drained his tea and leaned on his knees. After telling Zarita about his parents' deaths, the terrorist attack and the execution at the concentration camp, he had to swallow the tears that threatened to escape him. So now I've told you all about my background. Are you going to tell me how you know Dave? Zarita offered him a tight smile and shook her head. No, that kind of information's too risky to share. Were you born here, or did you get here from another planet? She shrugged. What other planet might that be? Where your people come from? My people? He pointed at her face. People with huge black eyes like you. Beluvians. That's what Dave called you. You understand little about the planet Alliance, don't you? No, he flushed. I already told you I didn't go to school. You know how stupid I am. She sighed and rested a gentle hand on his. The skin on their hands were both albino white. She looked at her pointed shoes. I was born on another planet, a water world called Nubilu. It never belonged to my people, though. Our chairman invaded it. My parents took me as an infant on a spaceship to escape that system, and they brought me here with many more. Frankie swallowed. I know nothing, not even the name of planets' worlds. She lifted her hand away from his. Intelligence isn't only about what you know. She walked to her bookcase. Would you like to learn more about this universe, though? Very much. But you didn't tell me. Tell you what? How your parents and the others made Hidden City. She pulled a large and heavy book from the bottom shelf. I have all the... Zarita! Someone asked through a speaker beside the entrance. She turned left and right, then replaced the book. Zarita! Yes, what is it? Do you have someone in there? Her hand flew to her mouth. Yes. May I enter? Sorry, we're having a private meeting. Private? Zarita sucked in a harsh breath. Hitching her shoulders up, she strode to the door. She opened it and spoke in a low voice. It seemed to do the trick as she returned to her bookshelf alone. Now is not a good time. Perhaps in the future you can return and I will read you some books. That sounds wonderful. She gave him a quick smile, then took hold of his arm and gestured for them to leave. Come, I shall take you to your lodgings. What temperature and climate would you prefer? A tropical one? She nodded and led him out to the tunnel. -1 it is then. No, not cold like that, she laughed. Level -1, not the temperature. I'm sure you'll enjoy the artificial lake on that level. There are many beautiful fish.